There's trouble in paradise on a small Italian island of Lampedusa. In the last 42 hours, thousands of illegal African male migrants have flooded the island. The island is now in a state of chaos, with the police having to physically fight the migrants. And the migrants are, of course, building roadblocks and walls and fighting a sort of territorial war. This, of course, comes as a surprise as Giorgia Meloni, the far-right Italian Prime Minister, who during her election was demonized as a Nazi, demonized as a far extremist, has done and was elected on the basis that she would stop boat migration, which at that point was high in Italy, has done nothing since she was elected about boat migration. In fact, when she was in office, currently now, Italy has seen more boat migrants than any other time in its previous history. Since even during the 2015 migrant crisis, it wasn't as high. So it's very surprising to see Giorgia Meloni, the far-right extremist, sitting back and doing nothing. The Italian police are doing nothing. Everyone is doing nothing whilst Lampedusa fills up with migrants. The locals in Lampedusa are saying enough is enough, and the mayor gave a fiery speech about how, enough is enough. Because enough is enough. Lampedusa has been overrun with migrants. And Lampedusa has always been used as sort of a migrant stop-off centre as its geographical location of Africa. And of course the left have called the migrants refugees. Well, leftists, take one look at these refugees. And do you notice anything? They're all men. All fighting-age men. If they were really refugees, they'd be women and children. They're not women and children, they're fighting-age men. The economic migrants coming here because they know that our migration policy is weak and our integration policy is practically non-existent, and they can just get into Europe and do as they please. They know that if they rape women, they'll get away lightly, and if they do other crimes, they'll get away even lighter, as we are soft. And of course, the bureaucratic fascistic state, which is the EU, have of course said that they'll disperse the migrants across Europe. Oh yeah, EU, because that worked so well last time during the 2015 migrant crisis, which saw an untold number of refugees claiming to be from Syria, but in reality were either from Bangladesh, Pakistan, or any other country in the Middle East that was not at war. They all fled here to Europe, claiming they were Syrian, and then were dispersed through Europe in similar ways that these migrants will be. And what did that lead to? Well, it led to mass rapes, mass robberies, mass terrorist attacks during the now infamous Summer of Terror, and demographical changes throughout Europe's major cities. That is what it led to. And the effects of the 2015 migrant crisis are still seen today, with terrorism practically high in Europe right now, and Sadiq Khan, the idiot mayor of London, saying that living with terrorism is part and parcel of living in a major city. Well, Sadiq Khan, I guess Warsaw and Budapest just aren't major cities then, as they have very low counts of terrorism. They also have very low counts of Muslims in their countries. But of course, the bureaucratic fascistic state, known as the EU, will, of course, lower the drawbridge of Europe and let these migrants in to do the similar things as to what the 2015 migrants did, which is commit mass rapes, form rape gangs, grow weed, do criminal activity, and generally do as they please. Europe has already seen what they did in Sweden, what they did in Rotherham, what they did all across. They saw what they did that New Year's Eve in Munich. I mean, not Munich, Cologne. The infamous rape game they played. We've seen what these migrants have done. And before the leftists try to claim that the Great Replacement isn't real, that it's a theory proposed by the far right, and that I am lying, or the right wing are lying, well, I'm not. The right wing are not lying. Do you know why? Do you know why I know that the Great Replacement is true? That's happening right now. It's because I have seen it with my own 2 eyes, leftist. So don't you dare call me a liar. Because I've seen the Great Replacement with my own 2 eyes. I live in rural England, and yet the little town, a shaggy, small town I go to, is filled with Muslims, with Africans, with Pakistanis, Indians, all sorts of different people. And it's far away from Birmingham, far away from anywhere else, but yet it's still full with them. There's even a mosque. So don't you dare call me a liar. Because I know the Great Replacement is happening. I know that the globalists in the WEF are trying to deliberately destroy the European peoples, as they don't like the fact that the European peoples question their order. They don't like the fact that the European peoples are naturally stronger and purer than the Africans and the Arabs. I don't like that fact. And so they're replacing them with Africans and Arabs who do anything they'll say, who work and not question the work. The perfect, mindless slaves. There's also a fact that the Russians have been saying to these migrants on Lampedusa and in Africa, if they come to Europe, they'll be rewarded with free money and be allowed to do as they wish. So no wonder thousands are coming. They literally think they're in a land of milk and honey. They're in a land where they can do whatever they want. And so, I'll leave with a message. Giorgia Meloni, if you're by some miracle watching this, were all those things you said when you were getting elected that led people to call you far right, all those things you said, do you actually mean them, Meloni? Or were you lying, saying that you would stop boat migration, saying that Europe was not Africa, saying that Italy needs to focus on the family and not the globalists, and that the globalists will try to take over? Was that all a lie, Meloni? Because it is, and that means you're a controlled opposition. You're a puppet of the globalists, as they try to control both the mainstream and the opposition in their endless struggle to control the world, their endless struggle for power and dominance. So, Meloni, you better do as you said you do. You better do what got you elected, or the people of Italy will rise up against you as they rose up against Mussolini and throw you out of your seat of power. In fact, it's time for all of Europe to rise up against our oppressive, authoritarian, bureaucratic leaders. After all, what has the EU ever done for the people of Europe, despite letting in thousands of illegals? To the people who live in Sweden, whose daughters were raped by refugees, and who now don't feel safe. The women in Sweden who think that wearing a hijab or a burqa will stop you from getting raped. Do you think the EU is good for you? The people in France who are recovering from the Paris riots, where thousands of Muslims from Algeria burnt down your capital city, assaulted your people, and killed you. Is the EU worth it? To the people of England, of Britain, who no longer feel at home in their cities, was the EU good for you? Is our current government, who just lets in the Dover discoveries without even a minute of hesitation or background check, good for you? And to the people of Germany, to the women who on that fateful New Year's Eve in September of 2016, we were raped by migrants and were told if you dare spoke up, it'll be politically incorrect. Has the EU ever done anything good for you? And I think it's all time for all of Europe to stand strong and united, stand firm against our bureaucratic, authoritarian, fascistic bureaucratic leaders and overthrow them. As Europe belongs to the Europeans, or is must belong to the Europeans, or is will belong to the Europeans. Our blood was shed for this land. Over thousands of years we defended it from the Muslims, from Napoleon, from Hitler. Our blood runs for the soil of Europa. Our great cities we built for white people, for Europeans, now taken over by Muslims, by Africans, by Pakistanis, by filth. It's time for Europe to rise up, as Europe has had enough.